Today's episode is brought to you by Canby Foursquare Church. Since 1978, a place to grow, connect, and serve. In-person services are back with some restrictions to help ensure everyone stays safe and healthy. For the latest, visit their website at canbyfoursquare.com.
Welcome to Now Hear This Canby,
your source for news.
The threat of a possible teacher strike was avoided this week.
There's a new, irresistibly cute creature winning over fans, and its name is Scootaloo.
Sports?
It's like Lucy in the football. You want to kick a field goal, if they take it away from you.
We had to learn how to win.
Goal can't be in the last second of the game! And interesting conversations.
Because I'm one of the strongest girls ever, and I know that for a fact.
I just really enjoy writing gossip as if I was a bear.
With an old maid daughter that make the best moonshine in the coast.
And if it would have hit me in the face, I think I would have died. I really do.
I guarantee you would have died, man. Are you kidding me?
Hey friends, and welcome to this episode of Now Hear This Canby. I am your host, James Walton. So grateful to have you join us. Let's read the news. The discussion of a monthly library reading guide pulled earlier this month due to controversy over an ad promoting an oral sex guide continued at the last Canby City Council meeting, with several community members requesting the subscription be reinstated and two councilors pushing back on a local resident's letter accusing them of supporting child pornography. The issue concerned BookPage, a Nashville-based circular containing dozens of book recommendations and reviews that is distributed to more than 4,000 libraries and bookstores and hundreds of thousands of readers across the country each month. The Canby Public Library has subscribed to the publication for more than a decade, the fees paid by the local nonprofit Friends of the Canby Public Library, and had never received a complaint until the March 2021 issue, which featured an ad promoting the self-published book Lick Like a Lesbian, described as a, quote, fun but informative guide to perfecting oral sex. The book is not actually available at the Canby Library or any other public library in Clackamas County for that matter. And City Administrator Scott Archer, after discussions with Mayor Brian Hodson and Library Director Danny Smith, had already made the decision to cancel the city's subscription to BookPage after residents complained. But that didn't stop a handful of constituents, including two members of the Canby School Board, from raising their concern at the March 3rd City Council meeting, repeatedly calling the blurb pornographic and claiming that publication could have been handed out to children. Several city councilors voiced similar concerns. It's not whether or not it's offensive, it's that a publication went out into the hands of children, as far as we know, Council President Tracy Hensley said. Little Susie could have gone down to the library to pick up her own books. Councilor Sean Varwig agreed, calling the publication a how-to guide for oral sex that was potentially given out and promoted to children, while Councilor Jordan Tibbles criticized the poor leadership that allowed the situation to occur, adding, "The innocence of children is something we should all care very, very deeply about." At last week's City Council meeting, Councilor Chris Bangs fired back, criticizing his fellow councilor members for comments he described as not fully honest. "None of this is true," he said, after quoting the above statements and others. "This was never marketed to children. Children never received this, as far as anybody knows. The staff at the library specifically said they did not put this into any bags with children's books in it." Earlier in the meeting, Hodson had read aloud a letter from Kathleen Mulligan and Gail Elizabeth, members of the Friends of the Library Board of Directors, who expressed their concerns about the city's decision to cancel BookPage without casually accusing any elected officials or city staff of committing a felony. BookPage is a resource magazine for adults who are looking for reading material, they wrote. It provides new book options in all genres, from mysteries and romance to nonfiction. It is not read by children, nor is it provided to children by the library staff. The objection that resulted in the consideration of discontinuing BookPage was not to the publication itself, but about an advertisement. The editorial content has never been called into question. Canceling BookPage because of its advertising sponsors is an overreaction, and canceling the subscription is a punishment that does not fit the crime. The Canby Library Board, a separate group of citizens appointed by the City Council, which provides input and oversight on library services, is also requesting that the publication be reinstated, according to Bangs, who serves as liaison to the Library Board. The city reacting the way they did to the issue about the book page was, in fact, an act of censorship, Bangs said, quoting a statement from the board. The Library Advisory Board was uncomfortable with the quick nature in which the publication was pulled without a thorough discussion of what it meant to censor materials like that. Clackamas County is hosting a series of COVID-19 vaccination clinics throughout the county starting this week, with locations that include the Clackamas Town Center Mall, Clackamas Community College, that's their Wilsonville campus, Clackamas County Fairgrounds, Malala High School, and Sandy High School. All vaccination clinics are by appointment only and available to Clackamas County residents who are currently eligible to receive the vaccine. You can schedule an appointment online by visiting clackamas.us/coronavirus/vaccine. If you do not have access to a computer, call 503-655-8224 for assistance in setting up an appointment. Slots are filling up quickly, with several locations already maxed out within hours of the county's announcement. We will host more vaccination clinics as we obtain more vaccines, the county said. We will announce additional vaccination clinics on our website and social media networks once they are scheduled. At your appointment, please bring a photo ID, wear a mask, and observe physical distancing guidelines. Insurance information will be collected at the time of appointment. Uninsured individuals will not be turned away. No one, insured or uninsured, will be charged for the vaccine, Clackamas County said. Everyone welcome regardless of immigration status, the county said in the release. Your information will be kept confidential. These local vaccine clinics are for currently eligible Clackamas County residents, which include Phase 1A. Those are first responders, frontline healthcare workers, long-term care residents and staff. And Phase 1B, which includes public school educators and adults 65 and older. Last Friday, Governor Kate Brown announced accelerated vaccination timelines if a county has largely finished vaccinating seniors. However, only 50% of seniors in Clackamas County have been vaccinated, so it does not qualify for accelerated vaccine eligibility. Additional groups are expected to become eligible in Clackamas County by March 29th. Those interested in taking the vaccine may also register with the state at getvaccinated.oregon.gov to be notified of appointments when they are available for your eligibility group. More than 1 million Oregonians have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine as of Wednesday, including 90,772 in Clackamas County. Both numbers represent slightly less than 1/4 of the total population of each. Herd immunity is expected to be reached once at least 75 to 80% of a given population has immunity. A Beaverton man was arrested this week after allegedly swiping a cash register from a Sherry's restaurant in Wilsonville, smashing into a parked car, and, worst of all, leaving his cat to take the blame. Both the stolen loot and the abandoned feline were recovered by Clackamas County deputies. The alleged culprit, 37-year-old Michael Ronald Woods, was arrested for second-degree theft, hit and run, and attempt to elude. The story begins around 10 p.m. Friday, March 19th, when deputies responded to the reported theft of a cash register from the Wilsonville Sherry's. A Clackamas County deputy contracted to the Wilsonville Police Department spotted the suspect in a white Chevy Impala a few hours after the theft. After the deputy attempted to stop the suspect vehicle, the driver fled a short distance before crashing into a parked car. Woods then reportedly bailed from his own vehicle and ran away on foot, the sheriff's office said. Deputies soon got their paws on Woods with the help of a canine unit from the Beaverton Police Department. While searching the suspect's vehicles, deputies say they discovered the stolen cash register, multiple methamphetamine pipes, and a lone black cat. The cat had been abandoned in the car by Woods during his attempted getaway. A deputy drove the cat, which quickly acquired the nickname Asher, to the VCA Animal Hospital in Clackamas. Asher enjoyed a cat nap on the passenger seat of the patrol car during the ride, deputies said. Woods, who has come within a whisker of escaping justice, was booked at the Clackamas County Jail. His bail was set at $27,500. You ever wished you could go back to a time before COVID-19? Well, is the 1500s far enough? After the coronavirus pandemic forced it to be postponed and then eventually canceled in 2020, the Oregon Renaissance Faire was rescheduled for this summer. And a festival spokesperson confirmed this week the annual celebration of Renaissance-era food, culture, arts, entertainment, and music is still on for June 5th and 6th and 12th and 13th. As of now, we are still a go for June. Ren Fair Marketing and Advertising Director Shauna Casey told Now Hear This Canby. We are closely watching changes as they are happening and will definitely keep everyone informed on things as they progress. Put on by the Washington Renaissance Arts and Education Society, a nonprofit that also organizes several large period-themed events in the Evergreen State, the Oregon Ren Fair is known for its unique blend of modern sensibilities and fun with a historically accurate sights and sounds and educational experiences. The event is modeled around a loyal visit by the beloved Mary, Queen of Scots, to a fictional Scottish village dubbed the Vale of Dunrose, which of course includes a tournament, entertainers, arts, crafts, and all manner of feasting. And ale. I mean, lots of ale. Come on, it's Scotland in the 1560s. Of course, with the Oregon Renaissance Faire also being a large event staged during a pandemic, is likely to include some changes, namely the standard COVID-19 protocols, which we've all been accustomed. We are following whatever guidelines the county and state are requiring, Casey explained. We understand that things are subject to change at any moment. Currently, this means masks, respecting space, lots of hand sanitizing stations, cleaning and sanitizing often, and so on. At this point, organizers are still planning to stage all of the elements of the fair's growing fan base has come to expect, from the tournament to street performers and circus acts to the marketplace to pubs and the food court. The biggest change is that Dunrose is likely to be experiencing a bit of urban sprawl, several centuries ahead of its time. We will make things bigger and more spread apart so people can roam safely, Casey said. The event may also be required to limit attendance to conform with public health guidelines, though it's too early to predict exactly what those will look like. We have been watching what other outdoor events that have managed to open are doing, Casey said. It seems that most are operating at a lower capacity to keep people as safe as possible. We are not sure what percentage that will be yet, but we'll have more info closer we get. Headed by a woman for the first time in its 175-year history, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office took time this week to remember a trailblazer who helped make that achievement possible, Lolita Boyd, the county's first female deputy. Known as Lo, Deputy Boyd was born June 1921 in Clatskanie, but grew up in the big city of Chicago, where she became an accomplished violinist and even had the honor of playing a 16th century Amati violin as a young girl. During World War II, she joined the ranks of Rosie the Riveters, working as a welder building Victory ships in the yards of Richmond, California. She moved to Oregon City after the war and grew so fond of the community that she vowed to never move again. She began her career with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office on January 7, 1957, when it was under the leadership of the legendary Joe Shobe, whose career spanned 4 decades and was synonymous with law enforcement in Clackamas County, according to his obituary in 1985. Boyd was first hired as a teletype operator and dispatcher, but soon began working with investigators and detectives. She was the first woman ever to be issued a deputy's uniform in Clackamas County. A 1959 story in the Oregonian recorded this remarkable snapshot of what life was like for her in those early days. Deputy Boyd, she said in a snappy answer to a telephone's ring and explained aside, I say Deputy Boyd because so many people call, hearing my voice, and ask to speak to a deputy. Then the argument begins. The story included some of the casual sexism of the day, like describing Boyd as blonde, 5 feet 4 inches tall, 120 pounds, and anything but bad for morale, giving her the title as Policeman Woman, and referring to her as Ricky Boyd's mother twice, before giving her actual name. Ricky was her then 9-year-old son, but it nonetheless underscores how extraordinary her position was at the time. Though her primary duties were as a relief shift dispatcher, she also accompanied deputies on some calls, especially those involving juvenile girls. And at times, she even escorted minor female defendants at high-profile trials, like that of Carlene Cover, a Milwaukee 16-year-old accused and later acquitted of strangling her mother to death following a dispute. Boyd even carried a service revolver and knew how to use it. 6 weeks training got my marksmanship rating, she told the Oregonian, but added, I don't shoot my pistol, I just carry it. She retired on December 30th, 1981, after 24 years of loyal service. She was loved by many and always brought a wonderful sense of liveliness to every room she entered, her obituary later remembered. She was well known for her generous, loving nature, quick sense of humor, and wit. The sheriff's office was more succinct, but no less appreciative. In the remembrance they posted on Twitter Wednesday, Deputy Boyd paved the way for women to serve in every rank and division within the sheriff's office, including the office of sheriff.
Stay connected to what matters most this winter with unlimited high-speed internet from DirectLink. While things may look a little different this year, as we all work together to keep everyone as safe and healthy as possible, you can be confident that DirectLink's reliable network will keep your video calls, Snapchats, stories, and photos crystal clear and at your fingertips whenever you need them. In 2021, DirectLink is thankful for all of their amazing members and is proud to be your local internet, video, and voice provider for over 116 years. Joining us again on the Canby Conversation today is Jason Fellman. He's a co-owner and co-founder of Harefest, as well as the owner of JFell Presents. Hi, Jason.
Hello.
Hey, man. How you doing?
All things considered, pretty good.
Yeah, as you typically are. That's pretty standard. Yeah. Well, as good as you claim to be doing, you shared some pretty heartbreaking news with us last week that sadly. You know what? I'm getting some feedback on the audio.
Get rid of it. That help it?
Check. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Sorry about that.
I have this original sound setting, and some situations it works better than others. So
that's much better. So anyway, yeah, you as good as you are or claim to be, you shared some heartbreaking news with us last week, Jason, with the news that the 10th anniversary of the popular tribute band concert series Harefest will not be making its debut at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds this summer as we had all hoped. It was obviously postponed last year because of COVID. I'm going to have to do that again this year. Why don't you tell us about that decision-making process?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bummer, right? It's
such a bummer. Cannot underscore enough how bummed I was to see that news.
2 years off is it's one of those things that you just you would never contemplate happening, but it did.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there's a lot that goes into a decision like this, and the biggest one is that you have to start planning for your event. I mean, normally we have
the week after the last one ends.
Normally we have basically have an 11.5 month planning cycle. So unfortunately, a lot of things are pre-planned from 2020. For example, we have our lineup, we have the space layout. So I mean, it's not like we were starting from zero either. But nonetheless, I mean, at some point you have to make a decision to start spending money, right? Yeah. And the problem is that when you're trying to plan for something and you're spending money and you don't entirely know what you're planning for, it sort of at some point it just becomes too risky. Right. And also, I mean, to be honest, as well as things are going with COVID, and as somebody who works full time in the music business, I will tell you that overall things are going fantastic, right? So it's a little bit counterintuitive to be canceling a festival 4 months in advance,
right?
When things seem to be going better. But, a part of it is that the events that are moving forward in July are already committing to making major changes in their format, knowing that things are not going to be unrestricted. I mean, I think that there really isn't anybody, at least at the producer level, who believes that we're going to be fully open in July. I have not met anybody who is planning for that, not a single entity or government, anybody. So it's not happening. And, for people who have been to Harefest, know that the social aspect of Harefest is, arguably, as or greater importance than the music,
Right.
And so, I don't have an opinion about, about the restrictions or what's right or what's safe or whatever. That's like, that's not our call, whatever. It's like, we just don't make that decision. Right. But we do know what Harefest is all about. And, we would rather, eat it for another year than not be able to deliver what it is that people love about Harefest. And that's honestly the bottom line. Yeah. We could do it this year. We could go, there'll probably be some, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that everybody who's been to Harefest understands that element of it. Having been there, it would be hard to imagine not being able to smile at the Harefester that you haven't seen, or
hug them, or lots of hugging goes on.
And what the pit's like. It's a rock concert,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
that's the thing, right? So like we just posted a story on our website, canbyfirst.com, about, actually we've done several stories about large events, some of which that are being canceled, some that are coming back in modified format. Right now, something we're really excited about, Oregon Renaissance Faire, which is a month before you guys would have gone in June at the fairgrounds. They're planning to go. Right. But it's not just, people think just large event, but it's not just the number of people there. It's the type of things that you're doing there. Right. Yeah. So the Oregon Renaissance Faire is a fair and a marketplace. It's more like a farmer's market where you can distance, you can keep space with people and spread them out really far. Yeah. At Harefest, everyone's crowded, standing room only around a stage. Yeah. And it's just, that's the way it is. And there's no way to police that. There's no way to put markers on the grass or whatever. And it's just, I get it.
Yeah. And what's interesting, there are other factors, I think, that people, that this is what people see, but there are other things they don't see. For example, like, there's a lot of, you have to apply for permits, for example. And it's like, well, we don't, how would you even know like how many people to plan for, or insurance, right? And a lot of times you can't, there's some people who aren't even able to get insurance yet, or some municipalities aren't even going to issue permits until, and the other thing too is that, Joan and I have other businesses, right? I mean, this is a practical matter. And so, and families, and we've been navigating through COVID as well. And I mean, I guess the good news is the music business is like, it's just like awoken. Like the Tesseract, It's like, it really, like all of a sudden, I'm like so busy with booking right now. It's like, it's really weird to be like canceling a festival while it seems to be ramping up, but all of the events we're booking have different circumstances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they're in a position where they can say, well, we're not entirely sure what it's going to look like yet, but we're confident that we can make it work within the restrictions because we have ample space and a simple event. You know what I mean? Like I can tell you personally, like, for example, I'll give you a great example. If we found out in, say, June that we could have had Harefest in July, you can bet money we're going to spin up something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all these bands are available that weekend. So, I even have this idea. I call it the Harefest reunion, right? Like if I can actually, if we can spin something up and do it, even if it's just music and concessions in a field at the fairgrounds or wherever, it's like, we'll do it.
Yeah.
But we can't do all the festival elements and deal with all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, our business is opening up at the same time as all this is happening too. I mean, Joan's managing her restaurant. She's got kids out, in life, and I got a child in school. And so anyway, so it's a lot of stuff,
Sure. That makes sense. And thanks for sharing that aspect of stuff as well, because that is important to understand that these are not some big conglomerate or corporation in New York City or something making these decisions far removed. I mean, you guys are just normal people in our communities as well, trying to navigate with all the frustrations and the ever-changing things that we are as well. So
I don't know if people know this, Harefest we have no employees.
Right. Right. Yeah. Lots of volunteers.
Well, we have contractors and amazing partners. We couldn't do it without them. But the point is like, at some point, like we have to be able to give it attention. You know?
Yeah. So what has been the reaction from folks when you made that sad announcement last week from the fans?
Oh, I mean, it's really, I think you probably put it in three categories. I think you have the largest category by far is the, hey, like, we're bummed with you, but we totally understand. Honestly, that's probably 95% of it. And you would expect that from the Harefest crowd. It's a family atmosphere. We know so many of the people personally, even though there are thousands of them.
Yeah.
Over the course of 9 years, you get to know people in the community, and that's one of our favorite parts. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's been great.
The way that you described it, Jason, I feel like and having talked to, last time we were able to do Harefest, a lot of those folks out there as well, I feel like they would feel very much the same as how you put it, that if we can't do it the way Harefest is, if we can't do it real, then what's the point of doing it? If we have to stay 6 feet apart, if we can't see each other, if we can't hear each other. Yeah. Everybody gets that. I mean, there are two other smaller reactions. The smaller reactions are, I thought, is more out of just maybe a lack of understanding of how the process of vaccination works and how herd immunity works and all that, and I think that there's, excuse me, a lot of folks who don't realize that it's not just going to be a normal summer. I mean, we're definitely going to have live music, but it's not going to be a normal summer yet. Right. And then you have a really small, like, sort of, group that wants to make it political, or like, I had somebody saying like, oh, you got, what a weak move. And I'm like, we've just been through a pandemic, and we had, our industry got shut down for a year, and Jones had to deal with the restaurant stuff. I'm like, you know what? Be a good human. You know what I mean? Like, if you really can claim to have the high ground, then don't be hassling an event producer at the end of a pandemic. Yeah, absolutely. Understand the people that are behind, making these hard decisions, that as bad as you feel, they feel even worse having to pull those triggers.
And I don't want somebody's money badly enough to take that from anybody, to be honest.
Sure. Well, now that you've bummed us all out and then scolded us, why don't you tell us about what you are excited about? I'm very interested to hear kind of from a more insider perspective about what live music is looking like in our state and in our area, what the outlook is and how that's improving.
Well, this is the great news, right? So, like I was mentioning before, like as a booking business, I just tried to describe this to my daughter who's in school. I said, imagine that you took a year off of school, and then all of a sudden you went the first.
Did she have to imagine that though?
Well, no, but they're in school. I meant like no work. Right? Yeah. And then they dropped in. Okay, here you go. You walk in the first day, and here's your first quarter of work all at one time.
Right.
That's what it's like to be a booking agent right now.
Yeah.
Normally, if we're looking at a summer, we would have been working on this since September, right?
Right.
But now, like basically with the end of February rolled in, early March, and all of a sudden it's like that, just boom, everybody wants to, and it's fantastic. I am not complaining.
Yeah.
This is a great, and it's so exciting because musicians are going to get to play this summer. So even though we can't do Harefest, the thing I think people should also be aware of is that there will be lots of opportunity to see live music this summer. The Wild Hare, we're going to have music out at the Wild Hare in whatever capacity we're allowed to do it. Outdoors, there will be music on the weekend. So that's something we didn't get to have last summer.
Right.
So it really is like, even though we don't get to do Harefest, there's a lot we're going to get to do this summer. And that's, I think, something people can be really excited about.
Yeah. You're a musician yourself. What has been the reaction from musicians to be able to start planning these dates out again and know that they're going to be able to do what they love?
Well, again, it's very interesting, like the strata, right? Because there's a group of musicians that, and I don't want this to sound judgmental because I don't mean it this way at all. I think everybody's got to do what's right for them. There's a group of there are some musicians that never stopped, and they just kind of did whatever they could during it, because again, putting food on the table, again, it's and then you have a group of musicians who are like we have this sort of intrinsic drive of like, the stage calls me, you know what I mean? And the artiste and all that. And I think that's probably the toughest for that group and the group that does it for a living. It's been so hard, you know what I mean? It's either attacking your wallet, your soul, or both. And so for them to be able to now start to have opportunities, I mean, it's such an exciting conversation when I reach out to the band for the first booking of the season. They're like, really? And I'm like, I know, I'm having the same reaction. I can't believe we're actually talking about shows, but we are, and they're happening. And so I think everyone's really excited about it. And then you've got a lot of people who've just kind of been sitting it out and waiting. And, but the common thread is, I don't care however you've been doing it the last year, we're all excited about it. And I think, we all know it's coming. It's starting up now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one worry for me, Jason, has been that the killing, or even maybe you would even call it a killing effect, that I would worry about that this long hiatus might have on musicians, that they are forced to go into a different job or whatnot, or they're forced to change situations, maybe move, whatever, and maybe the music scene just doesn't come back, or takes much longer to come back than in the entertainment scene. They can't just spin back up, as quickly as it was shut down after, at this point, more than a year of being on hiatus. Is that a valid concern that it won't come back quite as quickly this summer, regardless of the guidelines and the restrictions? It's just there's not as many people there that are able to kind of come back because of what happened during COVID.
Yeah, I guess the good news again is that I'm not really concerned about that at all.
Good. That's great.
It really it also, there are different sides of this too. Again, we could talk an hour about this particular issue, but to put it as succinctly as I can, Harefest, right? There's, 24, 25 acts. 2 years later, they're all going to be together.
Yeah.
It's like,
you didn't lose any of them.
No.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It helps to be the type of event we are, because as a tribute event, it's just super. I played as a musician. It's really fun. So people are generally pretty excited about playing it, and which is cool. And then the one thing though, so I think we'll lose a certain percentage of musicians, but no more than in everybody else's case. Small businesses, restaurants. Everybody. There's a certain sort of culling that goes on in any kind of crisis. But I think that there are two outlooks here, right? And they're both positive. One outlook is that there's a pretty strong belief that once we're allowed to do things at full capacity, we're going to enter the golden age of live music across the globe, really. And that makes sense to me because of pent-up demand. People have been able to use this time creatively, a lot of writing going on, a lot of new material. And then I know this to be true too, because as a promoter, I'm already having to it's much harder to get dates than it used to be because of all of these rescheduled shows.
Yeah.
But the second thing is that the pandemic has forced the society to move in directions more quickly that it was already moving into, specifically like the delivery networks, right?
Right.
More, all that. But musicians are the same way, which is ultimately it's the business model for a successful musician anymore is the musician entrepreneur. So the reality is that in order to be successful in music, even before the pandemic, the best call was to have two complementary revenue streams, right? So basically your music, and then not a fallback position, but like another revenue stream that is somehow relevant. So a graphic artist who also does ads for bands when he's not playing bass.
Right.
Or a guy like me who plays but books, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, or Kevin Hahn owns a studio but also sings for the Journey tribute band. That. Right. But overall, I think we're going to see a lot of great creative energy. People are excited to go see music, and when the time comes, I think we have a lot of really cool shows to look forward to.
Awesome. Great. Well, Jason, thanks so much, man, for taking time out to tell us about this. I'm glad we're able to end on a good note, an exciting note. I personally am so excited to see events coming back. I understand the difficult decisions that have to be made in the ways in which they come back. So I appreciate how hard that is. I know that was not an easy call for you and Joan to have to make that. But I understand and appreciate the difficulty that it was for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before you go? Ways that I know you guys communicated directly with fans and ticket holders and whatnot. Information. So I don't know if you want to shout that out, or just ways that people can in the general public.
What I'd love to be able to say is that it's just really more of this sort of feeling of, I don't want to overuse the word gratitude because it's kind of overused, but I think it's more than that. It's like, we love our Harefest family. I think we all know about this, right? It's not we as owners, but like everybody, the collective we. And so, every time something like this happens, it really reminds you of how special what we have. You know what I mean? Like together. It wasn't just us. It was like everybody built this as a community. People brought their friends every year and helped it grow. So the whole thing has this very organic feel. And so, to have, I know I'm testy, like everybody in the music business right now. But the reality is we have this awesome fan base who has really been supportive. And I just, so grateful that they're continuing to stick with us as we wait to do it right.
Yeah.
And all I can tell you is I guarantee you it will be worth the wait.
Yeah. You don't think the first time back on stage is going to be a little rusty and voices cracking and things like that?
all I'm going to say is we will have had 2 years to think of extra bells and whistles, and we're already thinking about, okay, look, we have to do something special for people who have held on to their tickets for this long. So that's
Yeah, that'll be exciting to see. Awesome. Yeah. All right, Jason. Well, thanks so much. Hang in there. Have a fun summer and rock on, right? We'll see you in 2022.
Joining us now is Donna Ellison of Ellison Team Homes, a firm serving all across the Portland metro area with 3 realtors based right here in Canby. Donna, can you tell us how Ellison Team Homes started?
I started in real estate. I grew up with my dad. He was a realtor. So I'm a second generation broker, and I grew up with him on weekends. And I learned a lot, eventually working with him for several years and then going out on my own. Our family moved to Canby a couple of years ago, but we really didn't know how it was going to go. And within the first probably 3 months of being here, we literally fell head over heels in love with this place. We love the community, the spirit here. The first Christmas at Waite Park, I was literally crying because everybody was walking around saying Merry Christmas and people were drinking hot chocolate, and we got in a carriage ride with the horse, and it was just too much. You just realize it's special here. Real estate's always been my passion. It is my professional love. I enjoy the people, the relationships. So much comes out of kind of the intensity that you spend with people. You're really up in their business for a period of time, and sometimes it's a couple months, sometimes it's a couple years, sometimes it's a lifetime. Yeah. I feel very blessed at this point to have people that have been with me for almost my entire career. Clients that have bought and sold maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. I have one client that's bought and sold 8 homes with me. 3 generations. It's a beautiful business. It makes for a very full life.
How can people find you?
How can they not, really? We have a website, www.ellisonteamhomes.com.
Well, thank you, Donna.
Thank you for having me.
Hey friends, it's me, James. I'm back for this last segment. It's Canby Then, our famous little series in which we explore the great, wonderful past of our beautiful little town, and it is brought to you by The Book Nook, Canby's amazing local bookstore and gift shop. It is your source for new and used books, comic books, audiobooks, vintage books. You get the idea. It's all things books. You can find them in their new location in the former Parsons building, across from the backstop in downtown Canby. I was just in there a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to check it out. It's amazing. Much bigger than the old space. Great to find things. I bought too many books, as always. Well, anyway, the story of Canby is a story about the railroad. It's quite literally true that the former would not exist without the latter, at least not in the way that we know it today. Canby's original downtown was platted on land originally owned by Philander Lee and his family, but it was agents with the Oregon and California Railroad who first approached Lee in 1870 and encouraged him to sell, with the idea of completing the ambitious line connecting East Portland to San Francisco. Lee agreed to sell 111 acres for a 24-block city for a grand total of $2,960, and sold 300 more acres to the railroad. Famously, his one condition was that the streets of the new town be wide enough for 2 span of oxen and a wagon to make a full turn. Philander's son, Albert, measured the span by hitching up the family oxen and turning the team and wagon in a circle. The diameter of that turn, 80 feet, became the width of the city's original streets, and the reasons that to this day, the downtown Canby has among the most spacious and open streetscapes of any town in the Willamette Valley. Ha! Thanks, Philander. The first rails were laid just after the city plats were filed in August of 1870, and in 1873, the railroad depot was built near what is now Northwest 1st and Grant. Styled number 11, it replaced the first depot, which was knocked down in a windstorm in 1871, the same year it had been constructed. Albert H. Lee, Philander's eighth child, was the first railroad agent. The first steam train chugged its way through Canby in 1871. Canby's first post office was in the drugstore across from the depot, and the druggist Charles Doc Knight, who came in 1870 and also built the first hotel, served as the town's first postmaster. The railroad tracks were soon lined with warehouses as the agricultural industry grew in the Canby area, including one owned by William H. Blair, who ran a wholesale produce and meat business that was so successful he virtually ran most of the local trade and government in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Local crops included grain, hay, potatoes, dairy products, turkey, flax, prunes, rhubarb, asparagus, berries, nuts, livestock, lumber, bulbs, fresh flowers, and nursery stock. The depot sent trains loaded with these local goods to destinations throughout the United States. In 1913, the Canby Depot added a second spur as PE&E opened up the new Molalla-Canby line in a move that was breathlessly covered in the local Willamette Valley Irrigator. Quote, "Some may say we attach undue importance to the Molalla line, as we are on the wrong end of it to deserve any benefit," the paper editorialized in September 1913. "We are on the receiving end, considering what that means. All the traffic to and from Molalla must pass through our doors. Everyone from the Molalla country who passes through Canby in the future must stay here for an hour or so, both going and coming. Isn't that worth something? Then also, it has often been proven that if you make it easier for people to get to any place, more of them will come." Canby's celebration of the nation's independence was particularly lively in 1915 as hundreds gathered at the Canby Depot in July of that year to wave as the Liberty Bell passed through town on its way to the Panama Pacific International World's Fair in San Francisco. Citizens of Canby and vicinity, to the number of several hundred, gathered at the depot and along the tracks Thursday noon to get a glimpse of the famous old bell as it passed through on its way from Philadelphia to the exposition at San Francisco. Newspapers recorded. The special train bearing the historic relic arrived shortly after 1 o'clock, and although it did not stop, it slowed down sufficiently to permit one to obtain a fairly good view of the bell. One of the most colorful episodes in town history occurred outside the depot in January 1918 when Clackamas County Deputy Dick Garrett was sent to be on the lookout for a reported shipment of bootlegged whiskey that was being disguised as luggage on a passenger train. Undercover to hide his status as a law enforcement officer, Garrett boarded the train and soon found what he was looking for. Here's how the Canby Herald recorded the incident. "Sure enough, there was a trunk, and holy Moses! There was another one, and then some suitcases," the newspaper said. Dick began to swell and gnash his teeth, and sailing forth, he found the owner of the booze, who was about half-tanked, and it was an easy matter for Dick to keep in touch till the sheriff could be notified. Unfortunately, one of the bootlegger's accomplices arrived before Sheriff Wilson and recognized the deputy in disguise. The unknown criminal grabbed 2 of the suitcases and disappeared through an opening in the roof before Garrett knew what was happening. He made his getaway into the dark and was never heard from again. In the meantime, the bootlegger, knowing the jig was up, decided he might as well tip up the jug. Sheriff Wilson arrived soon after, and armed with a search warrant, the Herald reported. Here he found the man who gave his name as Brown with the finest bunch of California joy water that some of our sports say that has ever come into Canby, all laid out on the floor. The next day, Brown pleaded guilty to having 200 quarts of whiskey in his possession and was fined $400 and 200 days in jail. He was saved by his wife, who went to Oregon City and paid the fine. Given the tongue lashing he no doubt received, he might have rather stayed in jail. Well, we'll have much more to share from the history of the Canby Railroad Depot, but it will have to wait until next time on Canby Then. And that does it for this episode of Now Hear This Canby. I'm James Walton. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.
Hey, Frankie, you okay? You seem kind of down.
Yeah, I'm just bummed. Miss going to the wild Hare. I know you can still get takeout and all, but it's just not the same.
You know they're open again, right?
What?
Yeah, they've been open for a while now. Don't you cover, like, the news?
Hey, I'm only human, okay?
Okay, well, I can tell you that the Wild Hare and their amazing staff are thrilled to be open again for delicious meals and fun times. They are strictly following all the recommended safety guidelines, and they have the only covered outdoor patio in Canby, with lots of tables spaced 6 feet apart and umbrellas also spaced 6 feet apart, and fantastic ambiance. And hey, if you're still more comfortable with carryout, they can hook you up there too. Find their menu and other information online at thewildharesaloon.net or check them out in Canby and Oregon City. And anything to add, Frankie? Frankie? Oh, I guess he left. God, he must have been really hungry. Now Hear This Canby is produced by me, Tyler Clausen. Our content director and star reporter is Tyler Frankie. And of course, our show is edited by Cameron Clausen. We also feature the vocal talents of Joyce Struby and James Walden, so a round of applause to them. The song that you're hearing right now is Canby by singer-songwriter Olivia Harms, used with her permission. To find more work from her, you can visit her website olivia13.com.
Now Hear This Canby is dedicated to preserving independent local journalism and redefining local news with our fun, fresh, and energetic brand of storytelling. Our sincere thanks to our local sponsors who make this show possible. Please show your appreciation by supporting the small businesses who support us.
The production of Now Hear This Studios, Canby's locally owned full-service audio, video, and media production company. Our mission is to produce the best content in the universe, and we'd love to help you do it. Find us online at nhtstudios.com.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
I just moved it.
I didn't even ask for it, though.